welcome to the show, my good buddy. And
Hell yeah, bro.
right? Instagram buddies, right? That counts.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, we chat at the gym too, so I feel like we've known each other over a year. Like, was it almost 2 years now?
a year and a half. I
Hell yeah.
joined in November of 2023. It was right before Thanksgiving. And I
hmm
was just going to check out this gym because I had heard things and I was like, oh, I should probably like get some information. And then your saleswoman there, Lexi,
hmm
I don't know what it was about her. I guess I have a weakness for blondes. I don't know. She just convinced me. I was like, all right, I guess I'm signing up 2 days before Thanksgiving I was like looking at New Year's,
Oh
but she
yeah,
convinced me. So
she's a good saleswoman, so she's
yes,
good at what she
definitely.
did.
Yeah, we
I'm
miss
glad
her.
you
But
signed up. It's been a good journey ever since. So made a ton of progress.
yeah, it took me a while to kind of get on board, but I've lost over 30 pounds since I first joined.
It's pretty impressive. That's way more than the average person. And 10% body fat. I think that's even more impressive.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get down to 15. But what is your body fat? I mean, at least at one point I saw a picture of you like before and after. It was like you were doing what do you call those? The shows where you're all tan and everything. And you look like you were like 7%.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel like I at least got to 10%, maybe a little bit more. We didn't have our scans back then, so it's kind of like by eye. But yeah, I did a men's physique show when I first got started with my training, which is how I met Jay, actually. That's how he got me, going in the gym. He trained me up for that show. And then after, I decided to work with him. So it's been a lot of fun since then. But
So
yeah, I
how
think,
long you worked at the
sorry.
gym since when?
I worked with him starting like 2018, 2019 part-time. And then after the gyms got locked down and we lost a few trainers because they had to do other jobs, we couldn't work out in the gym for a few months. Then I had opening to go full-time.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so before that you were in the army and you joined the army in 2008, I believe, right?
Yes, 2008 out of high school. And then, went straight to Italy as my first assignment.
Oh, okay. So then, and you were in the army from 2008 until when?
So I did two different contracts. The Army kind of separates it by like the years of the contract that you do. So I did initial 4.5 years active duty. That's when I was overseas. I spent time as infantry soldier and then also in a recon team, sniper team. And then in my second tour, that was more for the Army Reserve military intelligence. We did more like stuff in the background, kind of like focusing on the tactical side as opposed to the technical side.
So what is your like official credentials, like sergeant or like what is
Oh,
it?
okay. Yes, it's Staff Sergeant Kendle, and I was an 11 Bravo, which is infantry, and then from there we specialized, went into recon teams, and then as a military intelligence analyst, I was a 35 Fox, which is all source intelligence, which is more for like collecting, data from all the different intelligence branches, creating a product for the officers and commanders to make, intelligence decisions. So.
Oh shit, I didn't know about the intelligence thing. That's crazy. But you were a sniper. So you were a sniper before that then.
Yeah, that was while I was active duty. And then in the reserve, they do a thing where you can do like 1 weekend a month plus training in the summer. And then that's kind of like a different job usually than on the front lines.
Okay, so to become a sniper, is that I don't know, like is that really hard to do? Like how many people do you have to beat out to become a sniper?
I think a lot of it comes to, being in the right place at the right time. Like when I was there, they were doing tryouts. So I just happened to be there and new, ready to try out. And, you have to be physically fit. Obviously, they make you go through like training, make sure you can hack whatever the challenges are going to be as far as like not being weak on endurance or also mental strength, stuff like that. You do like a physical eval, you do a psych eval, and then you also do, of course, the training to get qualified as a sniper. So, usually what they do is they'll have tryouts, and if you get selected, then they'll be like, okay, we're going to have you do your physical, and then after your physical, then you start applying for a school date to go get qualified.
Okay, so like do you know how many people you had to beat out to
Oh,
like
sorry.
try out?
Yes, yeah. Well, it's it's not like a only so many people can pass. So
Mm.
say like a class is like 40, 50 people, all of them could pass, but I would say
Oh,
probably like at least 30, 40% don't pass. So like almost half
okay.
don't make it, but a lot of times people are coming back around and doing it again. So that helps people, get qualified, as if they don't pass the first time, they could come back around, do it a second time when they held the school next year.
And then what is like people kind of cheat on these tests? Like aren't you supposed to not use your contacts or glasses and then some people do, or how does that work?
Well, they don't like check everything. I know, for example, when I applied for my physical, this wasn't for sniper school. This is just for my physical. Um,
Hmm.
they had some, you know, lower ranking soldier checking your eyes, and he just has you go up to this machine, and he's like, "Hey, what do you see for 2020?" And then you read the line, and then he's like, "Do you have any contacts?" And you're like, "No." And he's like, "Okay." And then, you know, so what I did is I didn't tell anyone I had contacts. And when I went through my physical, I read the 2020 line because I corrected to 2020. And then I didn't need to report you have glasses. But turns out they allow people to have glasses, for the most part, unless you're doing certain types of training or missions, which I was never involved in. So
Right,
fortunately,
because
never.
isn't there some that like if you have contacts and then they gas you, then that can like fuck things up. So
Exactly. Yeah. So that would be the issue, is if there's ever a nuclear, biological, or chemical attack, that you'd be blinded basically, and then that would not be covered by the VA or whatever. You'd be out of luck.
yeah,
So, I mean, obviously,
crazy.
that's, in my opinion, that's one of the least of your concerns if you're getting gassed. But yeah,
Yeah,
we haven't been gassed like that in years. It's been like what, since, I don't want to say Vietnam or before.
gotcha. So
Mhm.
for the psych test,
Mhm.
gosh, that's got to be, yeah. How do they? Because it's so weird to me when I look at you. I'm like, this does not seem like somebody that's a trained killer. Like you're so nice. Like how do they train? How do they test for that in the psych test?
I mean, it's not like, what you think in the movies. It's more just like, are you, sound of mind and a threat to other people? It's not like you're looking at, what are they, those Rorschach paintings or anything. They just kind of interview you and talk to you. And like, as long as you give them normal answers, then it's kind of like less intense than, I would say, like a security clearance interview. That's even more digging into your past and into your, like, you know, what is dirt you have, stuff like that.
So do they give you some sort of like training after you leave the army? Like, okay, like, you saw combat, like here's how you debrief this, like
Oh yeah,
some counseling or
this is for
something
all
or
soldiers. Yeah, not just
yeah.
for like a recon or sniper team. I'm sure like for special forces, or those guys probably even get even more of this attention. I'm sure, especially nowadays. But for us, when we got back from our deployments, we saw a therapist that met with us at least 2 or 3 times. And then, we had a couple follow-on meetings. They offered us a lot of opportunities to also meet with people, but it wasn't like, I don't know. I feel like it was a lot of rushed through process, because like a lot of us were just back from Afghanistan, and we hadn't seen our families or been, off work for, like a year. So we're just like, hey, let's get this done. Like, get me through it. When, if maybe we would have done it, months later or at a different time, it would have been better.
Right. Because do you think that's like a big issue right now with like PTSD and soldiers? And I just feel like that's kind of being neglected. And then I think there's like this thing where, oh, okay, well, this guy has PTSD. Okay, he's on disability. Okay, well, he's fine. We'll just throw him in an apartment with a check every month, and he goes to counseling once a week, and some.
Mhm.
Oh, here's some antidepressants, and you'll be fine. It's like I don't think that's really the proper way to deal with this.
No, it seems like that seems to be an answer, in my opinion, to a lot of our medical, problems in America. Is they're like, just throw some pills at it. So it doesn't surprise me that they would do that with PTSD. But honestly, the work to get better at PTSD is tough. It's like, similar to other mental things, you have to kind of like do work on yourself and like figure out why you're having these issues and face them and deal with them. And it takes like practice and like daily, like not necessarily like motive meditation, but like you have to kind of affirm certain, things, and it takes daily work, kind of like working out in the gym, and that's harder than taking a pill. And honestly, I've had, some luck at the VA where I've had some, therapists that they actually want me to do that kind of work, as opposed to just like, hey, here's some antidepressants or something like that.
Shit. I mean, because I'm assuming that pretty much does almost every veteran that's seen combat have some level of PTSD? I mean, I guess it depends on how you define PTSD, but some sort of trauma from being
Yeah.
in combat.
Yeah. I mean, I think that everyone is dealing with something. I've seen it affect other people in more of like a, manifesting way in their life where it's like, seems like they have trouble dealing with real life situations, or it, is affecting them more like actively than passively. And then also I know people, and including myself, where it affects me more on like my sleep than, anything, not like bad dreams, but I have a hard time staying asleep and like staying, I guess in a relaxed state at night. So, just kind
Yeah,
of different ways.
yeah, I would think so. But I also think that you are probably mentally tougher than a lot of people, like such as myself.
Thank you.
I couldn't see combat. I'd be running for the hill. I mean, I say that, I don't know. Maybe I would rise to the occasion, but I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't, I feel like a lot of people would really struggle with that.
I mean, I think you're right. It does take some toughening up and putting yourself, through some training to get to there. But the army, if when they do a good job at this, what they do is they make you part of a team where you feel like you have to be there for your team. They do a really good job at that, especially like if you're on the front lines, because you work together in a way that you trust your buddy to the left and the right, or at least hopefully you do. And then if you do, then you're more willing to take those risks because they'll be there for you. And you honestly, like usually it's your first instinct is to react to the team and look out for the team as opposed to look out for yourself when you get there. It takes a lot of training to get there. And obviously it doesn't work out that way all the time. But that's why I wanted to be on the recon team, is because I didn't want to be stuck in like a basic, average team that the people didn't care about it. I wanted to be surrounded by soldiers that were good, and, I could depend on them.
Yeah, you were explaining to me the differences off air about how, like, when you join the army, they like explain to my audience the training thing. How they have, I never heard of this. They have the smallest person attempt to carry
Yeah.
the biggest person as kind of a motivation to both. Like, hey, if you're really small, you need to get stronger, and to the
Exactly.
big person, like, you might need to lose some weight.
Hmm. And that is also building that trust that we talked about. Like if you can see that that smaller guy can pick up the big guy and carry him, and like, and if he's shot or wounded, he can carry him out of battle, then you trust your team. But if not, then you're like, oh, that's extra pressure. Where like, hey, I got to lose weight. I can't be fat and not be able to be functional and support each other, or I can't be weak. I have to be able to carry every member of my team if I have to. So it's like external pressure to keep you in the right mindset.
But you said in the recon team, that
Mhm.
was it was that you didn't have to worry about it there because everybody was like strong and in shape, and
Mhm. Yeah, even
yeah.
though it's an all volunteer army right now, it's like still there's people that are just there kind of coasting through it. I knew if I picked the recon team, because we had to try out and it was a pretty tough tryout, that you had to want to be there to be there. So it tended to work out.
So as a former military army sniper, you're looking at these events from Saturday, the attempted assassination on former President Trump, like,
Mhm.
and you're looking at this team that they've assembled. Like, is this the best of the best? Like, because it seems like there was some mishaps.
Yeah, I know. We've all seen the pictures and videos. Um, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of critiques that people have made, and it's only been a week. I'm sure there's going to be even more critiques that we hear on the Secret Service and the police and how everyone responded to it. Um, yeah, I saw those, several officers that kind of stuck out. Looked like, you know, they weren't going to be able to do the same job. The female officer in that photo, what seemed to be out of place from, guarding the president, or the former president and presidential nominee. And I don't know. It seems like she may have been there as a, in place to fill a spot, or DEI, or something that's not, the norm. But if you looked at the security the next night when you went to the RNC rally, it was like all these 7 foot tall dudes. They'll look like Thor. So it's kind of funny how it switched.
Right. And it's weird because I'm sure that there are some women that probably could do that job. I mean, there
Yeah.
are some very tall, strong women, but I just feel like,
Yes, I
shouldn't that
agree.
be a requirement of the job? Like you were saying, like, you have to be able to, in the army, you had to be able to carry everybody. Like,
Mhm.
could she carry? I mean, what if she was the last? What if all the other Secret Service got shot and she's the only one there and she had to carry the former president? Like, could she do it?
I mean, I know there's women out there because I've seen it, and shit, they go to our gym too. Like we've seen them at our
Yeah.
gym. I've seen it in the
I've seen them
army.
at the gym too. Yeah.
Some of there's gyms, there's girls that can carry, men that are twice as big as me. So I know it's possible, but and obviously I want to emphasize I don't think it's that women can't do the job. I think it's just like I wouldn't want a man who was unable to carry the president to do the same job. He would also be disqualified to do that too. So I feel like it's most important that you can put people's safety first and be proficient at what you need when it counts. And I mean, when people's lives are on the line, something like that, I think that's even more important.
Yeah. Do they, I mean, you can't speak of the requirements for Secret Service, but
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast where the guy was former Secret Service. He said the requirements are 30% lower for women. Is there a similar requirement for Army in terms of like the Army physical test? Is it 30% lower?
Well, they used to do this thing where they had like a different graded test, and they'd say like, here's like the, male version, here's the female version. And now they kind of when they scored it differently, basically. But now they have it where it's more like tiered on what job you want. So if you want to do the combat arms job, then you have to score like, I forgot what the exact number is on the new test, but it's like I think a 400 or something like that out of 600, which,
Hmm.
to pass, you only need like a 300. So I think that makes it a little bit better as far as, making sure people are qualified. But I mean, I think it depends on the job. Like if you're going for like a Navy SEAL job, I think that obviously is a much more grueling test. They have other mechanisms at place that make people who can pass the test but shouldn't be there not be there. Like weeks of, getting hazed in the surf and all that other stuff. All the crazy stuff we see in the David Goggins videos.
Yeah. Well, and were you the one or somebody was telling me that like a lot of those Navy SEALs,
Mhm.
they cheat. They take they go to Mexico or something and get like steroids and
Oh yeah. I mean, that's I've heard rumors about that. I know there's a famous video of Dan Bilzerian talking about that where he talks about how he did that. Him and his other, boat members went across the border. They got shot up with whatever steroids, and then they came back, and that's what they do on the weekends. Which, I mean, honestly, those guys get put through so much hell. I'm sure, like a lot of people are doing it. I didn't notice any of that in my training, in basic training. It was we didn't get the weekends off like that to go do things like that. But I'm sure it's pretty common in the military overall. I know when I was
yeah,
overseas, I witnessed a lot of people, purchasing and using steroids overseas just to kind of like stay physically fit. But we were like walking 12 hours a day up and down mountains with the hundreds of pounds. So it makes sense.
crazy. Well, so okay,
Mhm.
back to the assassination thing. Like
Yeah.
when you look at the shooter, how perfect is the spot that he chose in terms of like the angle and like there was like cover from a bush a little bit,
Right.
so that the counter snipers couldn't see him. And I
That was
mean,
pretty wild.
yeah, like how was that just a coincidence that, or do you think he kind of scoped that out ahead of time?
So that's called a loophole, what you're describing right there, where he could see the target, but the target could not see him. And it's something snipers try and look for because there's an obstruction close to you where, like, it's like this. I can't see past this, but if it's far away like that, oh, I could still see you, but you can't see me. So that's what they're using as far as like, creating that really good spot. And usually that's really hard to find. So I don't know if he's just like got lucky or, how he found that spot, but it was very, very good for him as far as the counter sniper is concerned. What was it, like 130 meters away? That's pretty close. That's a very close loophole. So that's a really prime spot.
It seemed like he wasn't concerned about protecting himself from counter snipers. Obviously, they once they aimed, they killed him immediately. But typically, how do you protect yourself from counter snipers as a former sniper? Like, is there a strategy with that?
Well, one of the things that they always made fun of on movies is they're like, well, unless you aren't worried about being discovered like him, you don't go on the roof. The roof is one of the last places you go on because you can be spotted very easily. So they kind of like steer us away from doing that as a sniper. Instead, you'd go like in a building behind a window or door, or like you'd make it so you're inside behind some type of screen or anything you can put in front of you so you could be concealed, because if you're out there in the open then you'll get spotted. Obviously in a perfect world that's what you do. A lot of times I was on the roof when I was a sniper. I spent, I would say, almost 50% on the roof, unfortunately, because sometimes that's the only option you have. But ideally, you want to look for something more recessed inside of a building.
Holy shit. So 50% of the time you're on the roof with basically no
No cover.
protection.
Yes. But that was
Wow.
because I was in like a I was in an infantry unit. If you're in like the Navy SEALs or like, Green Beret, that's a little bit different. They're more of a small team, so they'll be kind of like more concealed. But sometimes they're like, "Hey, we're doing a patrol over there. I need you on top of this building to make sure no one takes shots at us." And yeah, we're exposed, but so is everyone else. So it's kind of
Okay.
like a bigger unit.
Yeah. And
So
so like what kind of gun did you use? I mean, I saw one picture of you. I mean, it looked like it had a pretty heavy duty gun versus the kind of gun that this kid used. Cause
oh
I
yeah,
think it was an AR-15, but can we define AR-15? Because everyone thinks AR-15 stands for assault rifle or automatic rifle.
it's a
It's
funny
not
misconception.
assault rifle. It's not automatic rifle. They're not automatic. They're semi-automatic. It's Armalite rifle.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's a civilian model of the M4. Basically, I think they said I heard it was 223, which is just millimeters smaller than a 5.56 NATO round, and that's pretty small arms. It's meant for person to person basically, which is a smaller bullet than what we were using. But from what the angles show from the photos, the back of the head being the target, that would still be lethal. Now, what I was using a 7.62 by 5, I think 1, and then a 5 by 5.3 on the 300 Win Mag. So we used a 308 and a 300 Win Mag for our teams, and that's a much bigger round that you'd like use for deer hunting or something like that.
Okay. I'm told it's not very difficult to make this shot that the kid was attempting.
No.
That basically every infantryman is supposed to be able to make that. They're expected to make 300 to 500 feet away, but he must have practiced this. And I read that he was a member of Clareton Sportsman's Club, which has a 200-yard range. So he
Mhm.
probably practiced, right? I mean, this
Right.
wasn't like okay.
I mean, he had a pretty accurate shot. He just, from what everyone says, Trump moved at the right time. So if that's the case, then he was pretty dead on before that moment. But that's the difference between the range and real life is that movement of a target, which unless you have practice hunting or doing that type of thing, it's hard to be ready for that. So I'm not saying that like he was a bad shot, but it seems like maybe obviously if he was only 20, he doesn't have as much experience as someone who's been doing it longer.
Well, how much time do you typically take to set up a shot like that? And what factors are there? Because I heard the wind could be a
Mhm.
factor, right? Like wind could move it. How much would wind?
Not much at 100
No.
meters. No, I mean
Okay.
it could move it maybe like inches, but I mean that's enough to save his life, obviously. But that's why a lot of times in sniper school they teach you to aim center mass, not at the head, because it's a bigger circle to miss. So if you have a bigger range of a target, then you have like 42 inches across the shoulder as opposed to like I don't know, I forgot what a head is, like 9 inches or something like that. So if you are slightly pushed off by wind from 130 meters, which is not very far, so that's not going to be a lot of wind, then it might only be like an inch or two. If it was
Okay.
500 meters, 700 meters, that could push it like feet. That's way different.
Okay. Gotcha. And he was
Yeah.
using a rangefinder. And
Hmm.
what's so weird to me is that I read that
Yeah.
the police saw this kid walking around with a rangefinder, and then they lost sight of him. But so wouldn't a rangefinder be a red flag
Of
immediately, or is there
course.
something else? Can you explain to my audience what a rangefinder is, and does it
Yeah.
have any other uses other than for target shooting?
It does, yeah. Well, it's a laser range finder. I'm assuming it's like one of the hunting ones, probably. Which they also make it for golf. So people for hunting or golf
Mm.
use it to zero in the rifle. Which at 130 meters, again, you don't need to zero that. It's so close. Usually, like if you're practicing on a 200-meter range, like he was, he's already within that range zeroed. So it'd be more important if he was like beyond 300 meters, I believe. But it would help him a
But
little bit. But,
okay,
but
but isn't it suspicious? If I mean, he's not going to be going up on the roof and hitting golf balls,
Oh no,
right? So,
no. I guess I said it incorrectly. I'm not saying that he, oh, I can't believe he had that. Like, it was just an amateur move. I think he didn't need
he
it.
didn't need
It
it.
was like something that he. I don't know why he had it. It's kind of dumb, but I don't know if you. I guess if you don't know the distance already, then that's something you need. Like,
So,
I
I
bet
mean,
the Secret Service agents had laser rangefinders. I'm sure they did.
yeah. I mean, do you think, based on what you've seen, do you think this kid had some sort of military? I mean, he obviously, there's no record of him being in the military, but do you think he had some sort of military training? Uh, Maybe somebody who was in the military who helped him a little bit, or
I mean, maybe, but it's just that was like it's 130 meters with a AR is very, very amateur, very easy. I'm not saying, oh, I wish he made it or he should have made it, but it was like kind of like a shot that anyone should have been able to make. It's just Trump literally moved at the right second. It
so
was so
what is
close.
the yeah? So what is the strategy as a sniper
Hmm.
when you're aiming and then the person moves like that? What is the strat? Then do you just, because there was multiple shots after that? Was
Hmm.
he trying to aim it back up, or did he just rapid fire and hope one of them hit?
It sounded like when I heard the audio that there was the first two or three shots were slower. So he probably was doing more of like a, reset every time, which is what you're supposed to do. You follow through with the shot. You pull the trigger, which on a AR-15, there's not very much recoil at all. It's pretty small. And you probably like go back a little bit and then boom, settle back into your target, which is what it sounded like he did. But after that, I heard a lot more shots quickly, which I can't tell if that was him or the Secret Service, but maybe that was the rest of the shots that he popped off quickly after.
Yeah, that's like some of the things that they're saying, that these audio experts are saying that there might have been three different shooters. So obviously he was one, and then the counter
Hmm.
sniper was another, and then there may have been a third shooter that was
Wow.
either on his team, or could have just been other fire from the counter sniper, or just could be, we're confusing the audio. I don't, it's hard to say. I mean, I
Yeah,
haven't done the full investigation, but from what
it's hard
you
to
could hear, I
tell.
mean, yeah, it's hard to tell. Okay, so you don't have a theory on that.
I don't know. I haven't heard too much about a third shooter. I could tell like there's two different tempos in the shooting from what I hear. There's the slower, more deliberate one, the first few
Mhm.
rounds, and then there's a high rapid fire one after, which could be him trying to just finish the job, or it could be the snipers returning fire, or even multiple snipers because it was so quickly. So that could have been where people are like, maybe there's three shooters because it was like pop, 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 really quick. And it could have been that could have definitely been two people. It was fast enough.
Yeah. So the counter snipers, they had better equipment, right? Like, did they
Oh
even?
yeah.
I don't know if they said. I mean, you could see a picture of it, right? Like,
Hmm.
what? Because some of these, I heard some of these old school snipers did not have this kind of tech. They had to use like a notepad and do the math. There's like
Hmm.
math involved, right? With the wind and all this.
Yes.
Like, if you're making a longer shot.
Yeah. And again, this is not a factor at 130 meters because it's so close. Like the wind doesn't really have a chance to take control of the bullet from that close, especially with a round like that. So they do have all that equipment. They didn't really need it though for that type of shot, unless they were way far away. They like if they're pushed way back, then they would probably need it. What I bet they did, and this is what we would do because we were just starting to get those. What are they called? Those data pads. I forgot. I want to call it an iPad, but whatever the data pads that they would put it in, for as far as like their data and like to go up and down with the elevation or side to side for wind, we would have to write it out or calculate it in our head. And but we would use these little maps that we would have of our area where like every building we would have a number on how far away it was and like which building it was as far as like an ID. So we can call out, hey, building number two is 200 meters away, and we could quickly dial in on that instantly and then be able to take the shot, which um, it sounds like the Secret Service, they had that, but they didn't account for that building due to, whatever reason. So they should have been
And is
able
there
to be
some
right on
sort?
target with that.
Okay. And is there some sort of like, because I think in the military, I don't know what you call it, like the rules of engagement, like, because that's what I'm
Yeah.
being told, is that they couldn't, they spotted him before he fired, but they couldn't shoot him because they weren't sure if it was a threat, which I don't understand. If they could see a guy with a gun pointed at Trump, why, or pointing at people, I mean, how is that not a threat? Or could they just see the top of his head?
I'm not sure like all the vantage points they had, but I think we said earlier one of the vantage points couldn't really see him fully, right? Because he was like
Yeah.
shadowed or something. So I think they
Right.
didn't have a clear visual. But
Okay.
also I heard that they, were informed that that building was secure already. So maybe they thinking that the building is
Uh,
secure. that they didn't treat it as a threat, which was a
They
mistake,
thought it was a
obviously.
friendly.
Yeah, which is a failure, I think, more on like no communication, because that should have been happening right away. Is like communication between whoever like was alerted and the Secret Service on the ground or on the sniper's nest. So it's like that whole point was dropped to the point where there was like that guy was able to get a shot off. If he wasn't able to get that shot off because they would have had that building secured, then it would have been a thwarted situation. Like we wouldn't be worrying about this or talking about this right now.
Yeah. Do you typically do? I mean, obviously, you can't speak for Secret Service and law enforcement because you're military, but I'm assuming there's some
Yeah.
similarity there in terms of checkpoint rounds, like, blah, 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 building secure, blah, blah, blah. Like you would
Mhm.
check that every 15 minutes or something. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I feel like, isn't that your job? Like, I don't
I
know
would
what else
assume
you're
that.
doing.
I hear everyone saying there was like no like manpower, that they didn't have enough funding or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I would think if I was in charge, I would have a roving person as well as like the people up high, and once they hear like, hey, there's a suspicious guy walking around with a rangefinder, then the roving people would go looking for him. That's what I would do. But I don't know what their plan was.
Yeah. It's so crazy. So you said that like, the counter snipers probably didn't need a bunch of fancy equipment, but I was just reading like Dan Bongino, who was he was ex Secret Service. He said it
Yeah.
was actually it was a very difficult shot simply because that tree was in the way. So they only had like a nine
Hmm.
inch window to take the
Hmm.
shot. I mean, that's so it is kind of a hard shot
From whose
because of
angle? The
the
Secret Service or from the
yeah,
the
the
guy?
counter sniper.
Okay. Well,
This
that's pretty
says.
tough.
Yeah, it says it was one of the most difficult shots in it says they had a 9 inch window to take the shot because there was a tree in the way. The counter sniper team that took out the shooter was a Secret Service team. It's one of the most
Mhm.
difficult shots any team has taken in a long time. They obviously had
Wow.
seconds to respond. Crazy.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but that's pretty cool. Like that, I mean, obviously not cool that they had to defend the president or the uh, previous president, but it's pretty wild that I didn't know that info. That must mean that the loophole was pretty good, that the guy was behind, so he was pretty
Yeah.
shielded,
Which is
which
like
makes sense. If you can't see the
either
target,
this
you think it's
right.
secure.
Either this kid is
So
just really smart 20-year-old or he
mhm.
got lucky or he had some help. Like I don't know. It's just seems a little like it's almost like too perfect. Like it just there's a lot of things that like
Yeah,
fell into but then at the same time I guess the former president was got very lucky by not getting hit too. So
yeah. I mean, I'm sure he's like, I'm just happy I'm alive. But you're right. There's a lot of questions. I don't really know any like thing for sure, but I hope we find out some more answers. I've seen videos recently about like the Secret Service director like avoiding questions and all this other stuff. So I don't know. I hope we get something definite soon.
well yeah, and then so I didn't understand her response said the reason there wasn't somebody on the roof. I mean, I'm trying to say this with a straight face, but this is
Yeah,
what she said. You can Google the video. She said it was because it was a sloped roof, which makes zero sense if you saw the roof that. And there's pictures of them
yeah,
over the guy's dead body, and it's not sloped at
right.
all. Versus there's pictures of the counter snipers, and their roof is way more sloped. So I don't know what she's talking about. Do you understand that as a former Army sniper? You must have some sort of a
Yeah,
professional
that's funny.
opinion on this.
I've definitely been on a slope roof before. Like, they make the bipod legs where you can make them shorter or longer to deal with that. And what you do is you put like a sandbag down or your backpack, and then you prop it up and put your rifle on top. It's
So
something we've dealt with.
So,
It's kind
so
of
what you're
silly, I
saying
think.
is that it's not a slope. It's not the craziest, biggest sloped roof you've ever seen as a sniper.
No, it's definitely not. You can manage that, and I think I saw like a little graphic. I think he was using the slope to prop his weapon up anyway, so it wasn't like hindering him. So it seems like she was just, from what it sounds like to me, making an excuse because she didn't know what to say. It's like, oh, it's a slope roof. It's like that's what it sounded like to me.
Like it's almost like she didn't even look at the footage, or just the most bizarre
Yeah.
response to me. Like that was the worst excuse I'd ever heard. And I used to work in middle school and high school, So I've
Mhm.
heard the worst excuses from,
That's
but I've
great.
never laughed out loud at one of their excuses. I've been like, oh, that sounds kind of like bullshit. But this one, I mean, I literally laughed out loud when I heard. I was like, what the fuck is she talking about? It was bizarre.
That it seems like did you think that through at all before you said it? It's like, come on, real people won't believe that. I think it's just grasping at straws. So the fact
Yeah.
that she thought that that we would buy that, I think is hilarious.
Well, yeah, and then it sounds like there's a kind of the blame game because she's saying local law enforcement was supposed to cover that building, and the local law
Mhm,
enforcement said no, we were only supposed to be on traffic duty. So there's
mhm.
some sort of disconnect there, which again, it just seems crazy that people weren't making the rounds and saying, hey, there's nobody on that roof. There's or when there was
Yeah.
somebody, there's somebody on the roof, but before that, blah blah blah, roof clear. Why isn't someone guarding that or guarding that building? I mean, it just I don't know. I'm not a
Mhm.
security expert, but some of this just seems like common sense to me.
It just seems like the radio communication was the biggest failure, in my opinion, out of everything. That's probably like the most clear evidence we have of what went wrong too. Like just
Mhm.
as far as like the multiple shooters or like where everyone was and things like that. Like that seems to be a little bit more abstract, but right off the bat, everyone talks about how soon everyone knew about the shooter and the fact that nobody informed the Secret Service. I think that's insane.
Yeah, it's so
Definitely.
crazy. And then explain this to me because I mean, I've shot guns, I've dealt with guns. I've never like holstered a real gun. Like I don't have a gun holster that
Yeah.
but in the video, the female Secret Service pulls out her gun and then she tries to holster it and she misses it. She can't do it. And then she just pulls it back out. Like, is that common
Yeah.
in the moment or in the heat of the moment or the adrenaline that you would not be able to holster your weapon? Or is that like a basic skill that you should be required to do if you're in law enforcement or military?
Well, I mean, I think I saw like where she had her holster. It didn't seem like the best spot in my opinion. It was like she had to
Hmm.
reach way back here, which in my opinion, like if you're going to be carrying a holster, you should have it a little bit more accessible so you can draw it quickly. And then a lot of people when they practice drawing, they always practice out and then back, over and over. They a lot of times in the military, you just do that for like, an hour just to practice the motion over and over, make it really quick and really smooth. So I don't know if they have different requirements in the Secret Service as far as where they put their weapon, but I think she should have either had a leg holster or like one of those like ones that James Bond has with the suits, or like a front draw. So I think that was just
Yeah.
inexperience on not taking the time to practice your draw 1,000 times just to be really good at it.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It seems like there were some mistakes made. I guess it's hard for us to speculate whether these were just mistakes made on accident or is this like, I don't think that it was like on purpose that they
No,
purposefully fucked this up, but I think what they're saying, I think were you the one that referred me to the Tim Kennedy breakdown? He's a
yeah,
former sniper and he
that
used
one
the
was
term,
very good.
yeah, he used the term knowingly negligent.
Hmm.
Like I don't know, like they almost kind of like pulled the goalie, I guess you would say, kind of like just kind of almost like daring someone to do like we don't know, we haven't looked at
Yeah,
previous
that'd be really
rallies and
bad.
things and seen was there shitty security on all these and it was just a time bomb waiting to happen.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard an interesting take on all this, and I think it's described as the white pill look, and it's maybe all this stuff has been happening this whole time, and we just had no idea. It's just like all these failures and like for this or Boeing or whatever, and it's just now that we're aware of it with social media and the news and everything kind of like more places to get your info. So maybe we're finally breaking through and figuring these things out for the first time. And this whole time we've been like, shielded and blinded. That's what I think.
Yeah, I saw a recent survey showed that about one third of Democrats think the shooting was a staged event. So, as a former Army sniper with combat experience, do you think this event was real? Like, are the bullet sounds and people's reactions real? Or is there any chance this was staged?
I mean, like that's so crazy. I think to like stage someone actually shooting real bullets at somebody. If it was like fake bullets, then I mean, still bad. But I don't think that was the case. Obviously, people died, so real people died. That firefighter, got shot in the head, and then that other lady or whoever got injured. Trump got shot in the head. I think anyone who thinks that it was fake is not informed, or they're trying not to be informed. That's what I think.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, it sure
Yeah,
looked real to me. I don't know. I've never had
yeah,
seen combat experience, but God, it scared the hell out of me. I mean, just freaked me out. Any sort of thing like that.
yeah.
Like, I don't want to see anybody get hurt. Paul, I mean, and I don't really like politicians, I'll be honest, but geez Louise,
Mhm.
like, I don't want to see people get shot. I mean, it's just, and that
No.
would have been, if they would have succeeded, I mean, everyone would have seen that on the national, I mean, it was being televised live, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, do you see some of those reports where, like, the initial reports were loud noises at convention, Trump carried off stage, and it like didn't even mention like that there was a shooting, or other ones that I saw another crazy one that was like the New York Times photo, instead of showing like, Trump and the rally, it just showed like the debris and the trash after and everyone gone. So it's like literally like making it seem like it was like a terrorist attack, or like some type of really bad thing, where like, like a massacre, when they didn't show anything about Trump, survived the assassination attempt. It's completely like rewriting a different narrative where it doesn't, acknowledge what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're hesitant to use the term assassination attempt. And I don't understand
Mhm.
this language thing. I mean, I don't know if you saw my clip from yesterday when I had the registered dietitian on, and she's a registered dietitian. Okay.
Yeah,
This is like what she
right.
does for a living. She said that somebody told her she couldn't use the term obese because it was derogatory. That's
Yeah,
a medical
at,
term. She's a
at work.
dietitian. So
Yeah, yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't understand
It's so
some of these
dumb.
language that it's like, you can't use this word. We can't say assassination. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me, because that's what it looks like to me, is an assassination attempt. I don't know what else you'd call it, but
It's controlling a
wow.
narrative, is what it is. It's
Yeah.
trying to put out a certain message, and that's like not what happened in from what we saw, with our eyes.
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know. It's interesting to see different people's reaction to this whole thing. I don't know if you saw today, Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook,
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of his, but he was saying how like he thought that, moment was so iconic, and Trump's a badass. And I was like, wait, you're saying this? I thought you hated Trump and
yeah.
he's Hitler and all this. So I don't know. It's interesting to
People,
see the narrative
what do
shift
you
a
think?
little bit for some people.
He's not the only one. Several other people are doing that. Like, I think more and more people are going to start, publicly, changing their tune.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think true when they said, you know, everyone, they kept calling him Hitler, but then when he
Mhm.
was almost got shot, they said, "Oh, like, oh, our thoughts and prayers go out to," and it's like, well, wait, if he's Hitler, shouldn't you be glad that someone tried to kill him? You shouldn't be thankful that he's not dead. You should be like mad that they missed, right? So it's like, it seems like there's some hypocrisy there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like, they're trying to be like, oh, forget all the stuff that we said. I don't know if you saw the compilations, but there's like a video of like all the mean tweets where people called him Hitler all put in a row, and it's like,
Oh, I haven't seen
really
that,
long.
but
There's a lot of them.
yeah, I know I've watched
Yeah,
it for since 2015 or 16 or whatever. So I've seen that. I think like
yeah,
we've
just like
almost,
tweet, tweet, tweet. Yeah,
yeah, we've almost just kind of like made ourselves numb to that. Like I feel like they did that with Bush and Obama too. I remember like I was living in Washington and there was like big posters of like Bush is Hitler, and then it was like when then it was like Obama's Hitler. I'm like, okay, we can't just call every politician we don't like Hitler. Like it just doesn't, kind of like
yeah,
loses its meaning after a while. But
I agree.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it,
don't know.
it doesn't seem to. It seems to be like demonization to the point where like, no one's rational anymore. Like, I still have people that like, you know, I can't talk politics with. Not that I'm like huge into politics, but I know that we're going to get in an argument because I know we'll never see eye to eye on it, and it's frustrating. I don't know what to do about it, to be honest, because I feel like I'm right, they feel like they're right, and I don't know how to make us see each other's side. It's
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
kind of
I
sad.
just try
Yeah.
to understand. I mean, I had this girl on, and she used the best term. She goes, "I'm a radical centrist." I was like, "Oh my god, I love
I
it!"
love
Like
that.
that's such a, because that's kind of how I feel. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle, and but
Mhm.
but it's weird because I feel like people on both sides call me the other thing. You know what I mean? Like people on the
Yeah.
right think I'm too liberal, and people who are liberal call me a right wing conservative. So I'm just like, I don't know how to respond to all that. So yeah, I just try to listen. I try to understand. I think that's the best thing you can do is just try to understand everyone's perspective, even if you think
Yeah.
they are crazy. Just try to understand that.
Yeah.
That's what I try.
Yeah. I mean, try not to disrespect people, try and, stay, I think, stay self-sufficient and, look out for you and your friends and do good things. That's what I want to do, you know,
Yeah.
and
Well, let's talk about what,
that,
because you are
yeah,
doing good things. Like let's shift
thank you.
and talk about health and fitness. When did you first
Mhm.
get into like health and fitness and weightlifting and all that stuff? I mean, was that before you joined the army or was it after?
Well, I joined the army. I was pretty light. I was right out of high school, so I was like, 19 years old, and I was really into cardio and like I did swimming and running, and I was always really good at that. So I kind of did mostly that type of training even after I joined. But then once I got to Afghanistan, we had to like, carry heavy backpacks and, go up and down mountains. And just like I said, if you couldn't carry the biggest guy in your team, then you were not reliable. So I was heavily encouraged to start working out and lifting by some people on my team. And at first, I wasn't into it at all. And I was like, I was just doing it because it was like something we had to do. But here's a funny story. My platoon sergeant was talking to me, and he's like, oh, that's cool that you can run really fast and do your PT test really good, and you score really high on that. But girls don't care how fast you can run, and unless you want to look good, you better start lifting. I was like, damn, you're completely right. And then the next day, I like went in the gym 100%, and I was like, okay, I got to get after this. And I haven't looked back since. It's been like 10 years.
Wow. So that was the moment. That's awesome. What is there anybody else that currently inspires you in terms of health and fitness?
Um, yeah, I mean, I remember like a long time ago when I was growing up, my dad kind of did a little bit of training. He had a bench press in the backyard, and he used to do like squats and everything before his knee surgery. And we would watch like, have you ever seen that old documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pumping Iron?
No, but you've
Have
told
you
me
ever seen
about
it?
it several times, I think.
It's very old. It's like the 80s or something like that. And it's like kind of, I want to say at least parts of it are in black and white. And, it's Arnold when he was like 25, 28, something like that. And he's just like doing his thing, getting ready for Mr. Olympia. And I mean, it's a little weird now looking back at it, but I watched it with my dad once, and like that kind of got me a little bit interested into, fitness, and I appreciated bodybuilding for what it was. Started looking up to Arnold, things like that. And then, after, I was in Afghanistan, we're kind of bored. We didn't have much to do on our, off time between missions since we're in Afghanistan. So I started like really looking into like who are the current competitors and bodybuilders. And I got way more into like that style of training and learning actually like that skill. So that's when I kind of got interested as far as like mastering the art.
Gotcha. Okay. So as a trainer, like you work with so many different people at the Five Star Fitness gym, and you've
Mhm.
seen people like you guys recommend kind of more of an omnivore, high protein diet, which
Mhm.
is what I'm trying to follow your guys' diets, like 50% protein, 30% carbs, 20% fat. I think that's a like a kind of a
Yeah.
approximate breakdown of what most people are trying to do. But you've also, I know there's certain people you've worked with that are probably
Mhm.
100% vegan and 100%
Yeah.
carnivore. What kind of results have you seen from the people that you've worked with that have done those three different diets? Like, how would you rank them? Would you say that the
Right.
the diet you guys are promoting is the best, or do you think carnivore kicks it up a notch?
Um, well, this is tough because I don't know anyone doing full carnivore. I have a guy that a couple people actually that are doing high protein meat diets, highly meat based diets, but they're also including a lot of fruit uh,
Hmm.
as a counter. So I don't know if that counts as carnivore, but those two people are very lean and they are very strong, like for their size. So they're not like bodybuilder size, but they look very athletic. They look like they work out, and you know, for example, one of the guys on our scan, it registers him at 3% body fat, which I mean, he's
Jesus.
definitely lean. He's lean as hell, but he's not 3%. Our machine obviously is a little bit room for error, but that's just
3%? Isn't that
yeah.
like a deadly?
Mr.
Isn't that like a
Yeah. To walk around and live like that. Yeah. I mean, bodybuilders get there when they compete, but it's not like they're, living there day to day for the year.
but
So
this guy is doing carnivore, so that's high fat diet, but he's 3% body fat, is what you're
no,
saying.
he's eating like, I don't think he's eating like no fat, but he's eating leaner meats. Like he's eating,
Oh,
he's not eating like what I've seen some carnivores
bake?
eating, more bacon or like only ribeyes
Right.
or something.
Yeah.
He's eating mostly like chicken, Greek yogurt, protein, avocados, watermelon,
Okay.
blueberries. And I think I don't know if he's doing egg. He might be doing eggs. I don't remember, but that's
Hmm.
about it. Just doing a
Wow.
couple fruits.
Huh. So what is the biggest mistake that you've seen with people's diets?
Um, Well, first off is like most people aren't, have no idea how much they're eating. And then the second thing I think is eating too little protein from what I see. So like that's one of the biggest things that people get used to when they start dieting is like easing the protein up as you go, as you make progress. And a lot of people that don't do that part end up hitting a wall and stop making progress long term. Like, for example, this happened with you. Once you started paying attention to the protein and like paying attention to like the other foods, the fats, the carbs, once you started upping the protein over time, you hit like a second like sprint of progress, Like when you first started, you made some really good progress right off the bat, and then kind of slowed down. And then we got really serious about the nutrition, and then boom, another sprint. So it's kind of crazy watching that happen.
Yeah, I just need that third leg of the sprint. Like upper body, like I'm happy. Like I'm some people might think I'm too thin, but I'm happy with my definition up here and stuff. It's just like that little like pooch, like on my
Oh
stomach, I
yeah.
got a little bit of love handles left. Like I don't know, like 5 pounds if I could. If there's a way to shave that off. How do I kick it up to the next level? Like adding a
Yeah.
third workout? I'm working out twice a day.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually might be pulling back a little bit to push more later. So like you made a ton of progress. I think we talked about this a little bit. What I would do is wait till you stop making progress with your scans. Like it may be slowing down and like just being like small jumps right now. But once you hit like a wall for 2 or 3 scans in a row, it's like, okay, we've hit a wall. We don't want to do less carbs. We don't want to do more cardio. You're already working out twice a day. We need to go into like a little bit of a metabolism building phase where we add a little bit more, high days and then maybe pull back on the cardio a little bit, let your body build up your metabolism. So when we have like more fire, we burn more fat, if you know what I mean. Like once your metabolism burns hotter, you have a little bit more muscle, you're ramping up in your activity, then we can actually torch the fat a little bit quicker again.
I
So think
can't
of it.
imagine you trying to tell David Goggins that he needs to pull back a little bit. Like, not that I'm David Goggins, but
Well, it happened to him. I hear what you're saying. Uh, you're going into a building phase, not into
yeah.
a. Right now, you're in a tearing down phase, right? And your body like tears down a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and your metabolism slows down as that happens. And that's what happens when you cut. That's not like you're doing anything wrong. And as you get to this point where it slows down, then you have to kind of like build back up and ramp the metabolism up into a furnace where it's burning a lot of fat again. And David Goggins probably had those moments unintentionally when he like, got time off from training or like, switch careers or whatever. But what you're doing is you've done a lot of the work ahead of time. You lost all that fat where like you couldn't build back up and ignite your metabolism when you had all that fat before because you had insulin resistance. Now that your insulin is way more sensitive, when we add the carbs back in, it's actually going to improve your metabolism when before it actually make your metabolism worse. That's the difference. So I'm
Yeah,
not telling you to back up.
the insulin resistance thing
Yeah.
that's huge. I mean, that's what I was talking with the registered dietitian about the other day. Just, I mean, she
Mhm.
says that's one of the biggest problems with
Oh yeah.
people in consuming way too many carbs and simple carbs, the simple sugars and things.
Even over 20% body fat, you have a hard time using carbs well outside of like working out. So you would have a hard time building up then. I wouldn't say, hey, we need to rebuild. I would tell you, hey, you haven't gotten there yet. We got to keep pushing. But, as we're getting closer to 15, you're probably hitting that point where we might need to up your metabolism to keep burning fat at a fast rate. And one thing you'll notice, like a lot of guys that are, you know, holding 50, 60 pounds of muscle, maybe 80 pounds of muscle, whatever they're holding extra, those guys, like, they can cut so quick. In a few weeks, they can lose like 5% body fat because they have such a fast metabolism.
Wow. What about so a lot of guys, it's interesting because like that's one thing change that I've made is I've been more consistent with leg days because
Hmm.
a lot of guys skip leg days, but legs are one of the biggest muscle groups. So
Right.
if you're trying to cut body fat and you're not exercising your legs, I feel like it makes it harder. So I mean, what is your sales pitch for leg
Hmm.
day? Because you've been good about
Oh, yeah.
like pitching that, I think.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm encouraging everyone, going to 5 star, you've noticed that we specialize in leg day. Like, that's a lot of what we do there. A lot of our clients, especially the female clients, come to 2 or 3 leg days a week. And, we have 2 leg days for the guys too. Most guys do 1 or 2, but you're right. I feel like I've kind of joked about it a lot on the side, like, oh, you better not skip leg day, kind of pressuring like lightheartedly, people to do it. I know that, like, there's some guys at our gym that didn't want to do it at first. And then after they get more comfortable, start doing it, they see, oh, yeah, it sucks, but you do make more progress. Like, I've really seen, you and Mike and some of these other guys like really get serious about it. And that has made the progress improve, for everyone. So my sales pitch is, you want to set yourself apart from all the other guys out there, especially with the ladies, because they notice. And then B, you want to get faster and more results, burning fat, more energy, higher testosterone, then you got to hit legs.
Yeah, no, I think it has helped me for sure. And I think with core too, because I think that's a huge
Yeah,
thing there. Again, I'm trying to get that 6 pack abs. And I think a
that's a
lot
good
of the
point.
leg exercises you have me doing, I feel like I am building the core.
That's a huge thing. Yeah. A lot of times, like, I'll get a client who comes in pretty lean already. Like, maybe they're like, you know, under 15% already. And they're like, oh, I just want to like get my abs to pop out. And we keep cutting, we get them down to 12, 11, 10%. And their abs still really aren't showing. And a lot of times it's because they haven't built up that thickness and development in their abs from doing heavy leg days. So, like, as you do bar squats, deadlifts, leg, or not leg press, but like the other, heavy loaded exercises, you have to build those abs to the point that you build them beyond what crunches would do. So I've noticed personally myself and other people, those people who are doing those leg exercises, their abs kind of like poke out more. And that kind of cheats a little bit because, like, hey, maybe you are like, a little bit over, in body fat percentage than someone whose abs are poking out like when they're skinny. If you have like bigger, thicker abs, you could probably have them showing up through your skin like 12% or less, where like some people might need like 8%.
Yeah. What about steroids? How common is that for people at the gym? Like, have you seen
Mhm.
that in action? Have you seen the side effects of steroids, or is it because I
Yeah.
know they obviously work? Nobody's going to deny that steroids don't work. They
Right.
work, but what is the cost of that? Do you think that's something that they're going to deal with later in life, or have you seen any
Mhm.
side effects like currently, like when people are using them like at the moment? You're like, whoa, you got some acne or like roid rage or
Yeah, there's been some of that at our other gym. I would say before at the gym we went up the road. I don't know if I should name the name of it, but the one we used to train at before we had our own gym. I feel
okay.
like there was a little bit of like road rage or roid rage, or like, I'd see people with like tons of acne on their back. Shit, I even saw like someone left a bottle of like it was a hormone blocker for steroids in the treadmill like pocket. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I even
What?
saw a bottle of that. It
They
was pretty
use it like
funny.
on the tread. I thought it was something you had to do
It was
like in the
empty.
bathroom or something.
Like, someone
Okay.
probably took the last one and just left it there in the
Oh,
cubby, or on the cup
okay.
holder. And then, like, there would be
Damn.
like sometimes there'd be like needles in the parking lot, like not often, but once in a while I'd be like, oh, that's an insulin needle. That's for steroids. But uh, I not honestly at our gym, I have noticed very little. Like, most people that I know who may be enhanced are on TRT through a doctor, which is like, that's for testosterone replacement. They're not like juicing like bodybuilders. I'd say that's more common than anything. A lot of people in Scottsdale, a lot of men like over 30 are on TRT like replacement levels, or at least they say
Isn't
they
that
are.
dangerous too, though? Isn't there side effects from that?
Yeah, like, here's the problem. A lot of people, when they go onto TRT, they go on like some generalized dose. Like, they just stick them on 200 milligrams of test, and then they slap them with some Arimidex, which is an estrogen blocker, and then they're like, "Hey, just take this, twice a week and check back in 6 months. And that's like, not probably a good dose for everybody. That's probably only a good dose for a certain amount of people. And then, some people might need like 150, like, milligrams as opposed to 200 milligrams. And, or they don't need the estrogen blocker, or maybe they don't even need testosterone. They need something else, So I feel like a lot of that comes down to poor TRT management. And then also like maybe like higher than they should doses. Like a lot of people call it TRT plus. It's like they're on TRT. They're getting whatever they're supposed to from their doctor, but then they just sprinkle a little extra on top, maybe black market, maybe not. And then they're on TRT plus and they just like walk around like that all the time. So that's a common thing too. Yeah.
Well, and what are your thoughts on Ozempic? Because how common, I mean, I think I saw something like it was going to be like 1 in 3 people are going to be on this in the next 5 years. Some crazy
That's scary.
statistic. Maybe it was 1 in 10. I don't know. It was something, it seemed like a lot where I was like, this should not just be handed out like candy. We don't know the long-term effects of this. And I feel like, doesn't that kind of hurt your guys' business? Because you're helping people get in shape naturally, but if they just take Ozempic, it's like a cheat code and then they're not, and if they don't work out, I mean, yeah, they're going to lose weight, but then like, don't you lose a lot of muscle by taking this?
So yeah, that's the biggest thing I've seen, because I have a couple clients who are on Ozempic or have taken Ozempic in the past, and I've seen the scans and what it does for the body. Honestly, I've had a couple clients who have taken Ozempic and eaten really clean, high protein, and trained, and they had really good results. Like, I'm not trying to advocate for it, because honestly, the work that they are doing, they should have just like, if they did that without the Ozempic, they would have had great results too. So they could have done those same things with how disciplined they were without it. So I thought that was kind of ironic, but they did. Their scans look good. They kept muscle. They lost body fat. It worked. Then I had clients that take Ozempic. They don't eat their protein. They eat shitty foods. They are inconsistent with their training because they don't feel good because they're eating shitty foods. And then they lose a ton of muscle, a little bit of weight, and their body fat looks like it goes up because they lost so much muscle. That's happened more often.
Yeah, well, it's just scary because I saw some article that just came out recently, and it said some people are going to go blind in one eye. That's a potential side effect. Not everybody, obviously, but some. That's a risk that you're taking with Ozempic, is that you could go blind from taking this drug. Scary. I'm like, this is what's coming out now. We don't know. Again, we don't know the long term after taking this 5 years, like 10 years down the road, 20 years. You don't know what it's going to do. To me, it just seems not worth the risk, but I guess it's people's decisions to do that. They're adults.
I think some people it's actually helpful for, like, if maybe it could be a better option than bariatric surgery, or, if you are obese and you are having, trouble like cutting down food and making that initial like progress cut that you need, then maybe it is good. But I think
if you're like 600 pounds and you're going to die, then maybe it's better than that. Maybe it's worth the risk at that. But these people that are like 40, 50 pounds overweight and they're taking Ozempic, I'm like, I don't know why they're taking that risk.
If it's as bad as we're hearing, like, I think obviously that's going to come out more and more over time. But that also goes back to what you said when you're like, are you worried that's going to take away from business? I don't think it will long term. Like, maybe not Ozempic. I bet they'll eventually come out with something better. But at some point, having that like side effect risk, or like a thing where you can't stop taking it without going back, makes it where you have to do some type of fitness someday, unless you're going to take it forever. Seems like a bad idea.
Crazy. I don't know if you can answer this question. I'm just really curious. Like, can you say who's the most famous person that you've trained at the gym? Because I've seen a lot of there's ex NFL players that have worked out at that gym, and like influencers and OnlyFans people. Like, it's kind of a crazy gym that we belong to.
Yeah, I mean, it's right in the middle of Scottsdale, so we get a little bit of everything. It seems like. I'm trying to think, because I'm not too good at the sports stuff. So like, probably as far as I know we had that guy from the I think he was the Seahawks. He was training while he was injured, and then we had the other player. Was he from the Patriots? I forgot.
I think it was on the
I'm so bad at the sports stuff.
Cowboys. I forgot his name. But I used to see him every day, and I always told myself, I'm like, I gotta go ask him to do my podcast, and then I just kept checking it out, and then I haven't seen him now. I think he left. So
Yeah, I forgot what his
Crazy.
first name is, but his last name was Poe, and like he was like a high
Yeah,
ranked
Dontario
player.
Poe.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's probably more famous than a lot of people. We've had a couple like, influencers there. Jesse James West. We've had what's his name? Joey Swole, a couple other like minor influencers. I don't know. We had a couple OnlyFans girls, less than we used to. I feel like we've lost a few
Well,
more,
yeah.
but
So
it's
how
kind
does
of
that? I
funny.
don't understand. This was so fascinating to me about like I thought like if you're OnlyFans, like you're like, oh, I better not tell anybody and keep it a secret. But I feel like they tell everybody. Like it's not like just you're not breaking like their
Maybe it's
confidence or
marketing.
something. I feel like everybody knows. Like, oh yeah, she's OnlyFans, or he. There's a male OnlyFans guy,
Oh
and
yeah,
they're
that's
telling
true.
everybody they're OnlyFans.
Well, it's like they are, but they aren't because they have like both two of the people that you're referring to have like profiles that aren't linked to their OnlyFans at all. It's like, hey, my name's Greg, and here's my fitness blog, and then on the side has like a huge OnlyFans page that makes a ton of money and stuff like that, and you never know looking at his other page. So like, I thought that was kind of crazy. I didn't honestly know about that till someone told me, and then the other girl like does OnlyFans. I guess she was pretty public about it, but yeah, she doesn't even hide it on her page at all. She has it all over there. But apparently, they're making good money. They drive nice cars. They, you know, have a pretty relaxed schedule. Seems like they're doing pretty good. Not
Yeah.
that
Did
I
you see
would do
that?
that.
No, I know. It's just crazy. Like Scottsdale's such an interesting, there's a lot of fancy cars and stuff, but then I kind of like wonder how many people are like on the up and up, like doing legit businesses. Like how many people are scamming people for money? Like, did you see that
Mm.
article I posted? It was like these people, this couple,
Yeah,
they had like $900 million, and what they
so
were doing
crazy.
is they were like charging Medicare and hospice patients to do this like rap or something. I don't even understand what it is,
Mhm.
telling they needed it and then bilking the Medicare payment, and made $900 million. Now they're going to jail. It's crazy.
It's yeah, it's kind of crazy. I hear there's a lot of scammers in Scottsdale, and I saw you post that. You know, a lot of people. My dad always told me when I was younger, he's like, if you see someone like balling out like that, it's usually not someone legit. They're making some money on the side illegally that they shouldn't be or involved. They're doing something, out of you know, the law probably. And I mean, I've seen it personally. I had some clients that are not me personally, it's not my client, but there has been a guy in the gym that was involved in like a crypto scam. He was ripping off like, people who were, major league ball players and other celebrities here in Arizona. And this is at our previous gym that we were at, not our current gym. We didn't own that one. So he was a member at that gym and he got arrested and like, he's gone now. Like no one's heard of him since, but he was like rolled up by the feds and everything. It was pretty wild.
Damn, crazy
Yeah.
stuff. Well, you're doing amazing stuff, and I
Mhm.
appreciate your help with me. Like I said, I lost 30
Mhm.
pounds since I've joined that gym, and it's
Yeah.
definitely
It's pretty
part
amazing.
to your guidance and wisdom and help with the training and
Thank you.
everything. So definitely shout out to you and shout out to Jay and all the trainers at Five Star Fitness in Scottsdale. And you guys have other locations, right? Isn't there one in
Um, we're
Avondale?
trying to open one in North Scottsdale soon. I know that's on the works. And then Jay also has a business in Avondale where he has trainers working out of there. So that's I think only women's classes. So there's no men's classes out there. It's a bit smaller.
Okay.
But yeah, besides that, it's been pretty good. Scottsdale's the home base.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate
Mhm.
it. Anything else you want to promote, or people can follow you on Instagram? You
Yeah.
post some cool stuff on there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love a follow at Kendle underscore MFT. That's my fitness page. You can always apply for training through there. Or hey, if you want to jump in with Chuck on a workout, we'll get you in there. See if you want to try out a session. It's a challenge, but we get good results. You can see it right here, Chuck. It speaks for us and makes us look really good. So I
Yeah, look at
appreciate you,
it. I
bro.
mean, look at this. Look at this muscle.
Mhm.
It's not that big, but
That's
I mean, it's bigger than it was, is what
it's
I'm saying.
progress.
Like, yeah, it's
I'm
progress.
impressed, and
Yeah, just
you all should be too.
make sure that you don't work out with Jay for your first session. He is
Yeah.
intense, and I was not
Yes.
ready for that. When you're out of shape, when you're 30 pounds overweight and out of shape, that's not a good place to start. He's
Yeah,
an ex football player, and yeah,
He's the
But now
boss, and
I think I want to
he also
try
has a
some
tough workout.
workouts. I would try some workouts with Jay now, but I feel like he doesn't have any at our gym anymore. Or maybe they're too
Yeah.
early. He doesn't do the
He does
9
them once in a
9
while,
anymore.
usually
Yeah.
like once or twice a week. But he's managing his skincare business, and working like more in as a manager role. But I know he likes to get out there and remind everyone that he's the boss and gets it done.
Yeah.
So we've all done that. We've all been through a workout with him, and it's definitely like it's a mental challenge. You have to be ready. So
Absolutely.
yeah, try it out, guys. It's a challenge if you think you can hang.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks again so much for doing this. I'll get this episode out soon.
Hell yeah. Thanks so much, bro. We'll see you Monday.
Okay, sounds good. See ya.